in the main session, and they'll be the same in all the other breakout rooms as well. We ask you guys remain on mute, just to make it easier for us to hear or to run through our slides, answer your questions. You can type those into the chat box and we'll enter them as they come. Also, there's 2 other rooms going on right now. There's a traffic room and a environmental and noise room. You can feel free to switch between any of those rooms during these next 30 minutes. This is your time to get all your questions answered. So again, feel free to start typing those questions in if you already have some. We have some slides you can run through on the safety and structures. If not, all right. Okay, so this first slide shows an overview of the crash reports that we studied in the area. So we looked at a 5-year span from 2013 to 2017. There were 748 crashes in the corridor. That averages about 150 a year. So any concepts that we drew up, we always looked to alleviate these crash concerns and look at the trends from the previous years to see where we could get the most benefit from our improvements. The pie chart that you're seeing is broken down by crash type. That big blue section is rear ends. 74% of the crashes were rear ends, which is pretty common in arterials that experience congestion. There's a lot of stop and go traffic. People get frustrated, and it results in a high number of rear end crashes. So any concept that we drew up that was able to alleviate the number of intersections, improve the efficiency of those intersections, would get a high traffic score because it should help to mitigate some of that rear end crash concerns. This next slide shows a breakdown by location. There we go. So those 4 intersections that are blocked off in the middle there had 57% of all the crashes. That's only a 0.5 mile span from eastbound I-90 to Auto Mall Drive. So the way that we used this information was, again, any alternative that would improve the efficiency of those intersections should improve the safety of those locations as well. So that would receive a high traffic score, or a high, excuse me, safety score in our evaluation.
So I'm just going to briefly walk through the existing bridge structure and discuss some of the reasons why a structure replacement is being considered here at Randall over 90. So first off, the original structure was built in 1960. And as you can see from the figure, the bridge was widened in 1989 and again in 96. So since 96, there has been additional repair work, but the bridge is nearing its design life, which is typically 75 years, as Matt discussed earlier. So where it's possible within the proposed geometries discussed, bridge widening isn't preferred. This is because additional sections are added, and it adds construction joints to the structure, which are susceptible to water infiltration, and overall can increase repair costs needed on the structure. So in addition to the age of the bridge, there are some geometric constraints of the existing structure. So the existing Randall Road Bridge is, as it is, does not meet current Illinois tollway standards if it was to be widened or repaired. So the vertical clearance right now is 15'7", and it would have to be increased to 16 feet to meet those standards. Additionally, the existing shoulders are only 5 feet wide, and that is below the current Illinois tollway standards. And this presents potential hazards for disabled or maintenance vehicles, and it prohibits the passage of emergency vehicles on the shoulder. So the reason we're looking at new structures here is that these deficiencies can be resolved, and the new structure could be designed to serve the specific needs of the intersection.
So we might have a question here from Dimitri. So Dimitri is asking about the PACE park and ride. So none of our options show the elimination of the park and ride. I'm not sure if we're calling, or if you're mentioning the, I need to pull up the Boulevard bridge over, which would impact the PACE bus facility, but it would not remove it. We would have to look at their entrances to make sure that we are still able to provide them in the same location. We might have to shift that, but we still would be able to provide access to that facility And again, the goal of this one to be improve the efficiency along Randall Road here by limiting those closely spaced intersections. But again, you would still be able to provide access to that pace bus.
And just a note, if you type into the chat to everyone, it only goes to our specific group, so you're not chatting to everyone in the other breakout session. So feel free to chat into the everyone category here.
All right, so we can just walk through maybe the different concepts and talk about the safety and structures for each one here. And again, we're going to keep letting you know if you have any questions, check those into those chat box. We're here to address them for you guys. We'll start with the south. So this slide just shows the overall rankings just of safety and structures for the south section. So that 3-leg modifications received the highest safety score, and then the echelon and 6-lane section received relatively low safety score. The 6-lane cross section, again, as I discussed on that first slide, options that would address the number of intersections and congestion in the corridor would receive a higher safety score. So providing just additional capacity doesn't necessarily improve the safety from what we saw of the trends. And the echelon, while it does improve the throughput along Alf Lane, it does incorporate a small weeding section, which I can show you here in a second. And again, so this is that 6-lane cross section that Matt went through. It's just simply widening so that we have a 6-lane section all the way from Big Timber to I-90. The safety score, again, was pretty low. It received a 1. Because it's not really addressing the concerns that we saw in the corridor of the high number of rear ends because of the congestion and the large number of intersections in a small space. This revised intersections concept did receive a very high safety score. It greatly increases the efficiency of these 2 signals at Alft. And then this is also a 2-lane signal that will be introduced here. So there is a small dock because there's a small weeding section here, but because we're getting rid of the left turn lanes from Randall Road at those locations, it should improve the rear end, the occurrences of rear ends in the corridor because it's improving the efficiency and the throughput in those areas. Again, this is the echelon. It did also receive a fairly low score. This area right here is where you would see that weaving section where the people who are turning right from San Felipe to get to I-90 would then have to merge with this traffic along northbound Randall Road. We'll move into the interchange area. I'll just go through the concepts here. So starting with the 6-lane section, excuse me, give me a second. So this received a very low score. This is the section that includes the area with the 3 highest crash rates at the intersections. And so since we are not doing anything to improve those intersections, we are just adding capacity along Randall Road. We don't anticipate seeing a large safety improvement based on the trends that we saw in the area. The Parkville, So the Parkville got a pretty high score. It improves the efficiency at the I-90 eastbound entrance, but it does not address the westbound entrance, which is why it didn't necessarily provide as much traffic benefit as we had thought it might, and also why the safety score is not quite as high as some other options. The Spoolie, a single point urban interchange, also received a 3. Again, I'm going to sound a little repetitive here, but any alternative that will improve the intersection spacing or the efficiency of the intersections will receive a higher score. And this one addressed both the westbound and the eastbound entrance, which were the 2 highest crash rates. So the safety score at this one was very high. This interchange is the flyover option. Again, the intersections are improved, so that did receive a high score for that. There is some concern with signing this movement. And it is a bit of an unfamiliar configuration for most, so that might, we'd have to be sure that when this is being implemented, excuse me, that it was clear how you would traverse through the area to get onto this ramp. So that's why it didn't receive the highest traffic score, but it did again. And we do anticipate that this will improve safety in this interchange. The displaced left, again, we're improving the intersections, so that's good. There is some concern with providing the angle of this could be concerning and difficult to maneuver. That's a design issue that, again, as long as it's laid out appropriately, it should be easy to know where you're supposed to go, but it is a safety concern if it is an unfamiliar movement for some. The hamburger received a pretty low safety score. While the goal of it was to improve those intersections, we didn't see reduced congestion, so that is not going to alleviate the safety concerns. And also there's the issue of side swipes, and there's a lot of conflict points here that people would have to maneuver between. The echelon received a very high safety score. It addresses all the intersections with the highest crash rates, and also it improves the throughput along Randall Road in the area with its very high traffic score. Also should improve safety in the area, again, given that we know that the intersections are the main problem that are causing a lot of the crashes that we see in the area. And then the final interchange option that we have is the roundabouts and express lanes. This received a fairly low traffic score. While it does improve the traffic in the area, there's concern with the weaving or merging back into Randall Road traffic at the endpoints where you tie back in to get to the express lanes, and also, so when you're tying back into Randall Road to get onto the express lanes, there's some concern in that area, which resulted in a fairly low safety score. Moving to the north, there's only a few options up here to talk through. So the 6-lane section, again, we're not addressing the concerns that we see in the area, so the safety score was relatively low. If you're just widening Randall Road, you're gonna get more cars in the area, but they're not necessarily gonna be able to get through the corridor any quicker. And then finally, the Point Boulevard grade separated. This one did receive a very high safety score. It's improving Randall Road and so it should be easier for people to get through this area and to get to the 90 interchange, which should reduce the rear ends that you're seeing from people who are getting frustrated in the stop and go traffic. Again, so if you have any questions on any of the safety stuff that I went through, feel free to type that into the chat box. We'll give you guys a second here to look through it all, let it process.
Katie, if you want to just go back to the maybe overall slides of the scores, I can just briefly talk about the structure and how each one was rated.
Sure.
So here you can see that each of the structures had high scores except the alpha lane echelon, and that's because for these alternatives, there really is no structure involved. So they all received a high structure score. The structure scores were based on impact to the existing bridge, as well as the complexity of the proposed bridges or retaining walls. So these received a high score of 4, except the alpha lane echelon, which is a semi-complex structure that would go over Randall 90 or Randall Road. And we'll get to your question in a second, but so for the main structures, again, you can see the no build option has a high score of 4, just because it does have no impact to the existing structure, and we have nothing to build. So that's a score of 4 for structures. And then as the structures here are rated from highest to lowest. So with the higher rated structures, those are more simple structures to build, maybe less structures. And then as you get to the echelon interchange, it's most impact to the existing structure and more complex structures to build. So we have a question from Brian, and it says, if Randall is widened, will a safety wall be built between the road and homes?
So I don't anticipate a wall being needed for safety purposes in that area. If we were widening, I'll pull up that slide here. I'm talking about near the village of Sleepy Hollow. So the option that we have here, you'll see, we should have a legend here, I apologize. So that purple is showing proposed new lanes. The gray color is showing existing lanes. So because of the proximity to the homes and the church in that area, we were anticipating that all the widening would be to the west in that location. So we wouldn't be getting any closer to those homes. Again, we're not trying to move into your backyard or anything. So we're going to try to keep that edge of pavement in this option, again, to eliminate those options, the impacts to those homes and the need for any sort of wall or barrier for safety purposes.
And Katie, I think maybe you want to address this next question. Has there been a cost breakdown by percentage between King County and the tollway?
There hasn't been, I mean, for this study is being performed by King County in the future. The reason why we're doing this is to be eligible for federal funding and other cost share, and the cost sharing for the next design phases and construction would be figured out in the future. But
next question again from Brian. It says, it shows widening of Randall on the east side north of Joy. And then again, same question, would a safety wall be built?
yeah, we do have some. So yeah, we would have to look into that if we were getting close enough that it would need some sort of barrier. Ideally, again, we're not trying to get into anyone's backyard, so we would have to look at that in more detail when we get into more detailed design.
Question, does the cost criteria in the structural evaluation category include future costs or just construction costs? So it includes a little bit of both. So in our evaluation of like impact to the existing structure, the existing structure is getting pretty old. So we do consider the future maintenance costs included with that structure remaining in place or building new structures. A timeline question. When would you estimate that the north aspect be started and completed?
So we would have to look at how we would phase the construction. In the project, we'd probably have to look at if there was right of way in certain areas and not in others and whatnot, that would require more time. So if they were trying to piecemeal it, that would have to be evaluated in the future. So we're still in, again, this early PEL phase. So we're still at least 5 to 10 years out from any construction happening anywhere on the corridor. And again, we would have to look at how we would phase that construction then at that point. Give you guys a second. If you have any more questions, we can go through our spiel again, although I don't know that we have any new people in here.
Now, obviously, feel free to jump around to different sessions. If you don't have any questions, you can always jump to a different session, come back and whatnot. We'll still be here.
Okay. All right, so I'm just gonna run through our few slides here again. Feel free to ask anything that comes to mind as you're listening to this. This is our first safety slide that we have. This just shows an overview of the crash data that we looked at as part of our crash analysis. We looked at 5 years of crash data from 2013 to 2017. We found there were 748 crashes in the area between Big Timber and Carrington Road to the north along Randall Road. That averages of about 150 vehicle crashes per year. The pie chart that you see there shows a breakdown by crash type. The big blue section there is rear end crashes. So the main takeaway from this is that 74% of crashes were rear ends. That's pretty common along, suburban arterials that experience a lot of congestion, as Randall Road does. There's a lot of stop and go traffic. People get frustrated and it results in rear end crashes. This slide shows a breakdown by location. That orange box that you're seeing in the middle represents 57% of all the crashes. That's just a 0.5 mile section from eastbound I-90 to Autumnall Drive. So the way that we use this information when we developed our concepts was any alternative that would address this area and safety concerns in that area would receive a higher score, because again, we want to make sure we're getting the most benefit from our concepts. And so when we identify the areas that are experiencing the most crashes and we address those issues, that should see the most safety benefit.
So again, I'm going to briefly walk through the existing bridge structure and the reason why we're considering a structure replacement for the geometries considered. So first off, the existing structure, or the original structure, was built in 1960. And from the figure, you can see that the structure was widened in 1989 and again in 96. There has been additional repairs to the structure since then, but the original structure is about 60 years old and is nearing its design life within the next 15 years. So where it's possible within the proposed geometries considered, a bridge widening isn't preferred. This is because the bridge has already been widened and additional sections add construction joints to the structure, which are susceptible to water infiltration and overall can increase the maintenance costs required for the structure. So in addition to the age of the structure, there are some geometric constraints if the structure is left in place. So the existing Randall Road Bridge as it is would not meet current tollway standards if it was to be widened or rehabbed. So this vertical clearance could add to the potential likelihood of the structure being hit from below. In addition, the existing structure only has 5-foot wide shoulders, and those are below current tollway standards, which presents potential hazards for disabled or maintenance vehicles, and also prohibits the passage of emergency vehicles on the shoulder. So with a new structure, these deficiencies could be resolved. A new structure could be designed to serve the specific need of the interchange. Feel free to type any questions you have into the box, raise your hand. There's not many of us, so even unmuting is probably okay. And then also, any questions you have would be great if you could fill out the survey that Matt had posted the QR code for. And also you can go to randallover90.com, as Katie is showing here on the slide.
Yep, absolutely. Yeah, it sounds like we might be heading back over to the main room here shortly. So again, any questions you have, type them up now.
I'm on the website looking for the survey link.
Yes. Okay.
Where is it on here?
So are you on the resources page? Here, actually, you know what I could do?
Oh, let me go there. Hang on.
Can you see my screen still?
Yeah.
So if you go to resources, and then you scroll down to additional virtual public meeting materials, it's this first link right here.
Oh, there it is. Okay.
Yep, and then it should take you right to there.
All right, thanks.
And it looks like we did get one more question here. Oh, about, yeah, so regarding Point Boulevard to McLean. So I'm gonna pull up, right? Most of the roads that intersect with Randall have multiple entrance and exit points. This includes Fox Lane, Alf Lane, Westfield Drive, Automall Drive, and Technology Drive. Point Boulevard is the only main intersecting road that only has one entrance or exit to it.
Katie, sorry to interrupt. Looks like the breakout rooms are going to be ending here shortly.
Okay.
If you still have this question, please send it in, or send it into the survey and it'll get addressed.
Yeah, so I know we had looked, I need to pick up. You're talking about extending Point Boulevard, excuse me, here to the east. We looked at it. I know that there is, I believe, a farm in that area. There's a park on the other side of McLean or Sleepy Hollow Road over there, which is why we hadn't necessarily included that as one of our options. We thought it might be too impactful. I think you also might find that by providing that additional access point, you're not necessarily going to get, because the interchange with I-90 is along Randall Road and not at McLean, you're going to find that it might draw more traffic to the area and people on the Point Boulevard trying to get to Randall Road than vice versa.